The day of her wedding, Heather dressed in a lilac gown with a sweetheart neckline. Her blonde hair was styled into curls and held back by a sparkling tiara. Her groom, Aaron, wore sneakers, dark slacks, and a matching plaid tie. The wedding took place under a wooden veranda in a park. During the ceremony, Heather and Aaron held hands and recited vows, promising to love, cherish, and protect and comfort each other. Afterwards, Heather's dad made a speech wishing the couple good luck. It was the day after Heather's 15th birthday. She was also 9 weeks pregnant. Her new husband was 24 years old. Heather had originally met Aaron when he and his parents came to work for the summer at her grandparents' fly fishing store in their rural Idaho town. She and Aaron spent hours hanging out and talking. One night they drank beer and hung out in Aaron's camper van. The next morning, Heather woke up disoriented without any memory of the night before. She was upset when Aaron told her they had sex. However, she liked him, so she continued to date him. Several weeks later, Heather got sick and learned she was pregnant. Per Idaho state law, it's a felony for an adult to have sex with a minor under the age of 16. The maximum punishment for this crime is life in prison. When she found out her daughter was pregnant, Heather's mom, Lynette, who is divorced from her father and lives in Utah, called the local police and filed a report for statutory rape. Also, per Idaho state law, sex between a married couple is legal, no matter the age of the spouses. In the U.S., people must be 18 to marry. However, most states allow minors to marry under certain circumstances. The requirements vary from state to state. Heather's father, Keith, stepmother, and paternal grandparents sat down for a discussion with Aaron's family. Keith felt that the Bible advised marriage and quickly nixed any talk of his daughter having an abortion. Both families hoped that marriage would keep Aaron out of jail. In Idaho, at age 15, Heather would need permission from a parent to marry. Also, she'd have to go before a judge. Worried that a judge might not allow the match, Heather's family did some research. While some states asked for both parents' permission, Missouri only required one signature from a custodial guardian or parent. Also, a court clerk rather than a judge could approve a marriage. The families piled into a van and drove the 17 hours to Kansas City, Missouri. First thing Monday morning, Heather, Aaron, and Keith went to the Jackson County Courthouse. The court clerk took a copy of Aaron and Heather's IDs. Keith signed his consent for them to marry. By 10 a.m., the couple was on their way back to the hotel to get dressed up. Within a few hours, they were married. A few times, Heather had been asked if this was what she wanted, by family, by the clerk, and by the officiant that married her. Although she said yes, the truth was she was scared. She cared for Aaron and she didn't want him to get into trouble. Even during the ceremony, Heather felt incredibly unsure. But as her family had gone through a lot of trouble to arrange the marriage, she didn't feel as though she could back out. Furthermore, Heather was excited about becoming a mom and felt like she should try to make things work. After their wedding, Heather and Aaron began living in a camper van on her grandparents' property. Heather started her sophomore year of high school. Aaron, a high school dropout, struggled to find work. Within a few weeks, Heather learned she had miscarried. In fact, it happened right around the time she got married. Soon, Aaron was arrested. Lynette, angry over her ex-husband marrying off Heather behind her back, had pushed for the authorities to take action. While Idaho law allowed Heather and Aaron to have sex as husband and wife, Aaron could still be prosecuted for having sex with a minor prior to marriage. Keith was also arrested on 2 counts, injury to a child and accessory to rape. Just 6 weeks after the wedding, Heather reluctantly testified against Aaron at a pretrial hearing. Although she claimed everything was okay, her life was falling apart. With no baby, the main reason she had married was gone. She and Aaron fought a lot. He also had a dangerous temper. Also, Heather had dropped out of school when Aaron was arrested. While Aaron was out on bail, Heather continued to live with him. She found a minimum-wage waitress job at a local burger joint. At home, Aaron expected her to do everything, cleaning, laundry, and cooking. Heather felt like she was his personal slave. As Aaron's case proceeded through the court, Heather was determined to stick it out. She'd made a commitment. However, Lynette hired a lawyer to annul the marriage. Just 4 months after they'd gotten married, Heather's marriage was annulled, and Lynette filed a restraining order on Heather's behalf against Aaron. Ultimately, Aaron was sentenced to 15 years with an option for parole after 3 years. He's required to undergo sex offender and substance abuse treatment. Whenever he gets out, he'll be on the sex offender registry for at least 10 years, if not more. Keith was sentenced to 4 years for felony injury of a child, but because Heather had somewhat agreed to the marriage, his sentence was suspended. Keith was instead ordered to spend 4 months in jail. As the judge handed down the sentence, he said to Keith, "Perhaps as you spend each of those 120 days in jail, you'll think about the 120 days your daughter was married to a rapist because of you." Heather moved to a suburb of Salt Lake City to live with her mom. She got a job and hopes to get her GED someday. Reflecting on the past, she can hardly believe that she was ever married at age 15. When Americans think of child brides, they generally think of some poor girl far away in a developing country. And that's true. According to the UN, in the developing world, about 1 in 9 girls are married by age 15, and 1 in 3 girls are married by age 18. However, child marriages happen in the US more often than you'd think. America is incredibly hypocritical when it comes to minors marrying. The U.S. Department of State encourages and funds policies overseas to educate young women and prevent them from marrying so young. However, the laws to protect minors from child marriage in the U.S. are patchy and widely vary from state to state. Currently, only 4 states, Delaware, New Jersey, Minnesota, Pennsylvania, and 1 territory, the U.S. Virgin Islands, have set the legal minimum age to wed at 18 with no exceptions allowed. Out of the 46 states that allow minors to marry, 20 states have no minimum age to marry with a parental or judicial waiver. Child marriage is most common in conservative religious communities and poor rural areas, but it can be found all across all races, socioeconomic strata, and in secular as well as religious families of different faiths. A national marriage survey in 2011 found minors involved in child marriages from Hindu, Buddhist, Catholic, Baptist, Muslim, and other faiths. Often teenage girls marry due to pressure from parents or their religious community, especially if they've gotten pregnant. One survey found that American girls in immigrant families are sometimes pressured to marry a distant relative abroad as a way of bringing him to the United States. The news program Frontline analyzed data collected by states and discovered that between 2000 and 2015, at least 200,459 minors in the U.S. were wed. It's likely the number of minors who were married during this period is far higher as the data was incomplete. Several states provided incomplete records or didn't provide records at all. Of the minors marrying, 87% were female. 67 of those who married were 17 years old. Another 29% were 16 and 5% were 15 and younger. That meant 985 minors wed at 14. 6 children wed at age 12. Some states only keep data with categories such as 14 and younger, without specifying exactly how much younger some brides and grooms were. So it's not possible to know the age of the youngest children wed in America between 2000 and 2015. Other states don't track spousal ages at all. Of the minors who married, 14% married other minors, while 86% married adults. While most of the minors married adults in their 20s, there were some big age gaps. In one of the more egregious cases in 2010, a 17-year-old girl married a 65-year-old man in Idaho. Once again, the available data isn't able to provide the full picture. It doesn't include minors immigrating to the U.S. that were wed in their home country. Per a Senate report, between 2007 and 2017, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services approved more than 5,500 petitions by adults to bring minor spouses or fiancés to the U.S., and nearly 3,000 approvals for minors trying to bring in older spouses or fiancés. Girls were the minors in 95% of the cases. Several petitions included people in their 40s requesting on behalf of spouses as young as 14 or 15. Also, Frontline's report didn't include data about children wed in religious-only ceremonies or taken overseas to be married, which are 2 common situations that happen with child marriage in the U.S. 15-year-old Sarah had big plans for her future. She had just finished her freshman year of high school. She wanted to join the Reserve Officers Training Corps, or ROTC, and applied to the U.S. Air Force Academy, ultimately hoping to go to law school. But those future plans were derailed when her mom found out that a boy from school was interested in her daughter. She called her ex-husband, Sarah's father, for his input on how to handle the situation. Though conservative, Sarah's mother was open to her daughter dating. However, Sarah's father, a member of a cult-like Islamic offshoot religious group, was not. He insisted that his daughter come to California and spend the summer with him. Once in California, Sarah's father made it clear that the boy from school was forbidden and lectured her about being chaste, even though she hadn't done anything. Not long after that, Sarah's father took her to a religious conference where she was introduced to a 28-year-old man. They were married that same evening. Though the marriage was spiritual and not legal, under California law, 15-year-old Sarah could have been legally married, then with parental consent and a court order. After the wedding, Sarah's husband took her out of the U.S. to his home country, which she prefers not to identify. Sarah's mom had no idea all of this was happening, and Sarah wasn't allowed to communicate with her mom for months. After Sarah became pregnant, her husband decided that they should return to the U.S. to have the baby. The couple settled in the San Francisco Bay Area. One day, Sarah was taken on a road trip to Reno, Nevada to get legally married. Not completely understanding the legal ramifications of what she was doing, Sarah agreed to marry. In Nevada, minors as young as 16 can be married with the consent of at least one parent, and Sarah's father had consented. Feeling trapped, Sarah worked hard to get her GED. She wanted to continue her studies and her husband agreed, but continually threw roadblocks in her way. By age 19, Sarah was pregnant with her second child. After several years of careful planning, hard work, and secretly saving money, Sarah was finally able to file divorce papers while her husband was out of the U.S. on a summer visit to his home country with their children. She was 26 and had been married 10 years. Her husband fought back and kept the kids overseas. Thankfully, Sarah's in-laws arranged for her to get her children back, but Sarah's husband began a long, drawn-out legal battle. It was another 3 years before Sarah's divorce was final. Today, Sarah works with the nonprofits to change the laws regarding child marriage. So much of this story for me is how much of a struggle life was after divorcing him, she says. What people don't always think about is the major setbacks and obstacles that child marriage victims face in rebuilding their lives. Between 70 to 80% of child marriages end in divorce. Married minors are twice as likely to live in poverty and 3 times more likely to suffer domestic violence than are married adults. Girls who marry before 19 are 50% more likely than their unmarried peers to drop out of high school and 4 times less likely to graduate from college. They're more likely to suffer from mental health problems too. If a minor tries to leave their marriage, a wide variety of problems await them, including gray areas with the law. While they've entered into a legal contract, in most cases they aren't considered legal adults. This means even if they have the resources, they cannot file for divorce or sign rental leases. If they've been abused, they cannot seek protection in domestic violence shelters, which are generally for adults. In some states, if minors leave home, they're considered to be a runaway, and authorities can return them to the care of their spouse or family. Even when married minors become of age and want to leave the marriage, they often have circumstances or children, which makes it hard to go. When Betsy was 17, she was forced to wed a man she had known for 45 minutes in an arranged marriage in her Orthodox Jewish community in New York. At age 27, Betsy was finally able to escape with her 3 young children. However, she was ill-prepared for the outside world. She was a single mother with a high school equivalency certificate, no work experience, and no money for childcare. The temporary and part-time jobs she managed to find couldn't cover her bills. Betsy received Section 8 Medicaid and food stamps. Sometimes she went without so her children could eat. Only when her youngest child reached school age was Betsy finally able to get full-time employment and gain some stability. We've talked about the problems that teenage girls face when marrying young. Do young men experience similar issues? Yes, although there's even less data available regarding them. Early marriage often brings early fatherhood, and many young grooms are forced to drop out of school to take menial jobs to support their new families, which often creates or perpetuates a cycle of poverty. Considering the range of problems that arise from child marriages, you'd think the U.S. would be eager to change the laws. However, there's a wide range of proponents of child marriage that span the political spectrum. Religious groups believe teenage girls make better spouses because they tend to be more malleable than older women. Social conservatives argue that early marriages can reduce births out of wedlock, as well as the number of single mothers on welfare. Libertarians have defended the practice because banning it means the government intrudes on the right to marry. Critics point to the small number of minors who marry other minors. If under 18 marriage is banned, it can restrict young people in the military from receiving certain benefits. They also point out that in most states, the minor must go before a judge to get consent to marry. Thus, minors are empowered to halt the proceedings if they desire. Nonprofits that work with child marriage survivors say that child brides are under pressure and don't feel safe enough to tell a judge the truth. While a small amount of minors marrying other minors may be inconvenienced by having to wait until age 18 to get wed, a ban would serve the greater good. A nationwide ban on marriage below 18 would end statutory rape loopholes and end sanctioned predator access to minors. What's life like for teenagers in North Korea? Find our video here. How has life changed for teenagers in the last century? Check out our video here.